Alright, so for this video, it's going to be pretty simple. People have just asked me what kind of setup I have in terms of at my table, what kind of tools, what kind of paintbrushes and things like that I have. So I actually have, this is my little workout room that I have different things in, my monster toys and things like that. And then I was lucky enough to get a nice little shelf for just not very much, about 50 bucks. And then got myself a nice little chair. So that way I'm pretty comfortable with what I do here, but I have my own little isolated area, so I never have to move anything very much. So here's what I typically have at my table, readily available. I have a good amount of space. I probably could organize it a little bit better. But I just like pushing things off to the side and such. So let's talk about some basics. When I go to paint, I always make sure that I have a little plastic container of water, and usually it's hot water, because that way I don't have to run off somewhere and wash my brushes. I can actually do it in this, and then I can set them there overnight if I need to, if the brushes get too stiff. I also make sure that I have a towel handy, so that way I can just dab it down in case I need to, and I want to use the brush again, because some of these things I use the same brush over and over again. And the towel always does help, or if I get something sticky on my hands, like working with Milliput, the water is always nice to have, and then again, that towel there. So I do have, this is the epoxy that I use, at least for now. I always have that sitting nearby, as well as my Mod Podge, and then my nail polish remover, non-acetone. And this stuff is all really fairly cheap. I'm not an artist by any means, and I don't spend a lot. In fact, you can tell that by the paint that I use. If you haven't seen the videos before, the paint I use is just the plain old Walmart Apple Barrel brand. I have a lot of them. As you can see, they're only 50 cents a piece at Walmart, so that's kind of nice to have so many available. I also have Exacto Knife. I use it quite a bit, and not just to cut things, but in areas where I need to get paint off some small intricate areas. That sharp edge actually does help out quite a bit. I also have some tools for, again, scratching some things off the figures, or taking paint off in areas that other objects cannot get it. I got a big pack of Q-tips. These are really handy for cleaning the skin on the figures with the nail polish removers, so I have some of these laying around. I always have a pair of scissors. I always need to cut something, maybe get something open, so I have a cheapy pair of scissors. And the last thing is, actually, these two go hand in hand. I don't want to forget these here. But the paintbrushes are the cheap Walmart brand, which, when I say cheap, not a lot of money. I don't mean cheap in terms of quality, because they've worked really well for me, and this is a little bit of a package here. I usually use just the same brushes, and these are pretty worn. I need to get some more. But I have thick ones for the big spots where it's all the same color. These are all soft bristles. Do not get the hard bristles, because they don't work very well. But I have one that's pretty wide, so that way I can do big areas at one time. I make sure to have one that's angled, like this one is. This is one of my favorite brushes, and I'm going to have to replace it soon because it's getting too stiff. But I have an angle brush, and I make sure to have several different sizes of the small ones for lettering. Make sure that they're pointed. Those work really well, because there is literally a point, no pun intended, where the point starts to wear off, and this one's pretty well shot. I can still use it for other things, but you need little ones for lettering. So again, I have a multitude of them, and I also use them for Mod Podge. Soft bristles. Hard bristles do not work well on them with the Mod Podge, because they just leave big lines. The soft bristles, God, I can't say that word, bristles, are really effective for the Mod Podge. So you don't have to go expensive on any of this stuff. It's all relatively cheap. And I use plastic containers. This is like, I don't know, chip dip or something container. And then these are like lunch meat containers that I spread the paint on. But then also it's important to save your paint. And so these get pretty airtight. And so if I find a color like this was a flesh tone that I used for One Man Gang, they work really well as well. So there you go. This is just my basic setup. Again, didn't cost too much. I enjoy what I do, and this is kind of my little comfort zone.